It's Tuesday, January 22nd, Wednesday, January 23rd, if you're on the East Coast or across the pond. And this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. Hope you had a great day at night. I am your host, Dave Scott, broadcasting to you live from the Great White North, on top of the mountains of central British Columbia, right here at SOR headquarters. We welcome you nightly on the SOR Radio Network, Deep Talk Radio, and Revolution Radio. If you want to take a listen to our archives, they are free for you at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. You can rock out to Bumblefoot, shop at our store, pick up a t-shirt, socks, pillow, whatever you want. Read up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire, and so much more. Tonight's show is brought to you by the YouTube channel Insuho. Sebastian Martin brings high-quality messages to the masses. Head to our website, click on the Insuho banner, and subscribe today. The Queen of Cryptids is back on the show tonight as journalist and author Linda Godfrey joins us to talk about monsters that surround us. Best known for her work in the late 1980s reporting on the Beast of Bray Road, Linda has been a strong pillar in the cryptid community with books covering everything from Dogman to UFO encounters. Her latest book, I Know What I Saw, Modern-Day Encounters with Monsters of New Urban Legend and Ancient Lore, can be pre-ordered at this time. And as many of you know, in Linda's last book, Monsters Among Us, she actually used one of my UFO sightings of a black triangle over my house. That's always exciting. Then at the bottom of hour number 3, we have Olaf Phillips from Paranoia Magazine back for another edition of the SOR Newswire. Linda Godfrey, always a pleasure and a humbling experience when you're on this show. How are you?
Oh, thank you so much. I'm just happy and pleased to be here, Dave. Thanks so much for having me again.
Always a pleasure to have you here, my friend. Our audience is always changing, Linda, and let's go back in time a little bit when you were a young reporter out in the middle of Wisconsin, and all of a sudden you get this report of this strange creature.
Yeah, I laughed. I did, because, it wasn't even a report that I got. It was a rumor that I heard, that somebody told me. There was a woman who sometimes, sold stories to the newspaper, and I knew her a little bit. And she called me. I still have my little note scrawled on the back of an envelope from my desk, where she said, people out on Bray Road, that's this maybe 3 to 4 mile long road, wends its way out of Elkhorn toward beautiful downtown Burlington, Wisconsin. And they're saying that they saw this thing that looks like a werewolf. And this road is nothing spooky looking or special to see. It doesn't look like it would harbor anything like that. And especially Elkhorn, the middle of Walworth County, we're right on the state line with Illinois almost. So it just didn't seem like a place where werewolves would be hanging around. And furthermore, I didn't and still don't really believe that there are actual medieval/Hollywood style werewolves running around this country. I think there are other explanations. So I laughed. But I did happen to go see the county animal control officer, because he and I were working on a story about area puppy mills and some other kind of darker things related to animal mutilations and that sort of stuff. And so I asked him about that, and I said, well, have you heard, this rumor that people are saying they've seen something that looks like a werewolf out on Bray Road? It stands upright on its hind legs. It has pointy ears. It has fangs. It has claws. And it's upright. It runs and walks on its hind legs like it just belongs to that form of locomotion. And he said, well, do you mean this? And he opened his bottom drawer of his desk, and he pulled out this manila file folder, and it was labeled, I kid you not, werewolves. And, at that point, you're thinking, oh, this can't really be happening. It's like something out of a horror movie. And he opened it up, and he had names of people in there who had been calling him and saying things like, I saw this thing. I don't know what it is, but it looks like what you'd think of as a werewolf. And they'd go on to describe it. And then more importantly, they were leaving their names, their phone numbers, their addresses. And I thought, well, if these were a bunch of jokers, set out to, prank the officer or something like that, they would not be leaving all their contact information so that they could be contacted and charged with fraud or something later. So that impressed me. And he shared the contents, and I began to go out and find these people. I didn't know any of the witnesses before I talked to them for that, and I would chat with them and went out to their houses when possible. And I realized none of them seemed to me like they were fibbing or lying or anything like that. They all seemed very adamant at what they had seen. And so we did a little article in the paper on New Year's Eve weekend of 1991, 1992. And it just blew up, went national. I can't say it went viral because not enough people had the internet then, and nobody knew what Facebook was. There was no Facebook, really. So, it went national just from Associated Press and newspapers. And it just never stopped since then. It's been, going on 27 years, I think, if my math is correct.
My goodness. Did you ever expect that little story that you were working on, that you were chasing down, that at the time you, as a journalist, you don't believe any of that stuff. You just sometimes want to do a strange or weird story just for the sake of it. But did you ever believe, Linda, that not only would you be having the rest of your life associated with the Beast of Bray Road, but number two, did you ever think that it would eventually go as viral as it has and continues to this day?
No, never. It was never my intent. I was at that newspaper because I just wanted to get my cartoons and editorial cartoons published so that I could have a portfolio and, maybe do that nationally. That was my main interest for joining that newspaper, and then they asked me to be a reporter, and it kind of changed up from there. But this story we thought would just be local and go away in 2 weeks, and instead, within 2 weeks, we had the old In Search of Sci-Fi show and Inside Edition, back when Bill O'Reilly was a host on Inside Edition, way back when. And then once it got out like that, it just brought more and more. And that kept up. I worked for that newspaper for 10 years. Very little of that time was spent on stories for this sort of thing. I think I did 3 or 4 updates, and the rest of the stories were just really mundane things that you usually see in your newspaper. So I finally got to the end of 10 years, and I thought, well, people are still trying to track me down and ask me more about it and want to know this and that. And even I put up a little primitive website, and that didn't seem to do much. So I thought, well, I was getting to the end of writing the stories because I was finding myself writing stories on the same people I'd written stories on 10 years before. It was being repetitive. So I went back to teaching art a couple of times, art and library a couple of days a week, and started writing my books. And I say books because The Beast of Bray Road was not my very first book. My first book was a true historic crime book about a strychnine murder, actually, in southern Wisconsin that had never been told about or reported. It was just sort of swept under the rug. And it was actually a nationally known story at the time. There were people from I found more information in the New York Times about it than I did in some of the local papers. And I had researched that for 6 years. And that was my first book and kind of got me a leg up into the regional publishers. And then they said, well, what else have you got? And at that point I said, well, would you believe werewolves? Which got their interest. And when they understood my premise, the first book that I wrote, The Beast of Bray Road, Tailing Wisconsin's Werewolf, was not only about sightings that I'd heard of, but also I wanted to sort of record the social and the historic aspect of it, what people were doing. Like there was a congressman that was running on the werewolf ticket, and he was using the Beast of Bray Road, having pictures of himself taken with a guy in a werewolf furry suit signing an affidavit that he was going to vote for this gentleman who won, by the way. And there were things like that, just local businesses were making T-shirts, and just everybody was sort of having some fun with it. And I thought all of that should be recorded. And my main reason when I first decided I wanted to do that story was I thought perhaps this was like an injured big dog or something, and that people should know if it were dangerous, if they had to bring their little kids in and watch their pets, that they had a right to know about it. And I also thought it sounded like folklore in the making, which would be a really cool thing to participate in for anybody, and I was into writing enough that I did recognize and appreciate that. And that it really has become, I believe.
Right. It really has become legendary, and you have become legendary off it, as well as one of the world's premier speakers on this topic. And what is that like, Linda, where everybody knows you as the Dogman lady? Everybody looks to you for answers, even though you may not have any, because, when you have that big story, or you broke with the Beast of Bray Road, everybody comes to you when there's a Dogman story out of Michigan or other places in Wisconsin or wherever this creature is now being seen. Do you feel a little lost at times, or do you feel that this is just coming with the territory after this long amount of time that has passed since you broke that story?
Yeah, I'd say it's more the latter, and I feel bad when I do not have answers for people, but I never try to pretend that I do, because that would be sort of useless. I keep saying no one has actually ever brought one out, kicking and screaming from the woods, and maybe tranquilized it, taken some blood samples, held it up so we all could see it, and really know for sure what these things are. And there are lots of different possibilities that I always try and go through. And I've said right from the beginning that I'm not sure that what turned out to be not just sightings on Bray Road, but all over Wisconsin, all over the U.S., Canada, and down into South America, are all the same thing exactly. There are lots of things that look like a canine running around up on its hind legs, but I'm not sure that they all match one possible answer. I think there probably are several answers at least to explain them. And again, I always try to be really careful to add that I'm not a scientist. I'm working from conjecture and from what I receive from people who write to me or call me in their descriptions, because they're the ones that I look to for my own thoughts, and then I come up. I look into history and folklore and that sort of thing too, as much as I can, and try to make associations, but there's just no way that I could flatly say, yeah, I know what it is. There are some things that I don't believe that it is. For instance, I've already mentioned, I don't believe that it's the standard werewolf that, comes out on the full moon and bites someone to make more werewolves and, needs to be killed by silver bullets and all of those things. A lot of that stuff came out of Hollywood. Some of it is from ancient lore, but most of it's invented today. But except for in medieval days, they did kill people. There were wolves, not always on their hind legs, but wolf-like creatures that did kill people and animals, and seem to be a lot more bloodthirsty than today's generation of whatever these are.
What do you think it is? Let's not maybe not what it isn't, but what do you think it is? Do you think it's a mammal, an animal that we just haven't discovered because the numbers aren't too strong and it's probably very territorial? Do you believe, like what a lot of First Nations people believe, that there are some supernatural type creatures out there that are roaming the forests and the woods of nature? Deep down, what do you believe?
Well, yeah, I kind of believe all of those. Because it very well can be all of those different things. In the same way that, let's say there are humans. We know what people are. We know what we are. We know we're flesh and blood. We know our limits and that sort of thing. But then sometimes people see phantom people, that we call ghosts. And they may look real, and we have a glimpse at them, and then all of a sudden they're gone. Or there may be other things that can mimic humans in certain ways. I could go on and on with that. But in that same way, maybe it's the same for these other animals too. There's something that is a real wolf that has learned to walk on its hind legs. Maybe it's had a mutation in its hips or spine to make that easier to do. Because walking erect on hind legs is something almost any mammal can do. especially if it's motivated by either human training and treats or by being injured in its forelimbs and it can't place those paws on the ground anymore. And you can go to YouTube and you can see dogs. There's a Fylth, the wonder dog, and then there's a bear that had injured paws and was running around perfectly upright in some East Coast. I can't remember exactly where it was offhand, but if you put bear running upright, you can probably see it. And there was even Humanzi, which was still kind of mysterious, but it was supposed to be there was a chimp that had some kind of sickness that made him walk and stand upright, because chimps aren't normally they're hunched over and they don't run perfectly upright. So it's very startling to see this one doing exactly that. And these are just flesh and blood, regular animals. And I think that there's still a chance that the greater share, which would probably, I would estimate, somewhere around 90% of the reports that I get where people are driving down the road and they see these wolf-like animals on their hind legs either bolt or bound across the road in front of them or pop up out of the ditch on one side of the car, or they're sitting there with their hands up. And I say hands because a lot of people do say elongated paws or the paws seem more hand-like, but they're holding some kind of meat or something in their paws up to their face and eating it that way rather than holding it down with one paw and kind of pulling up with their jaws like you usually see an animal do. So there's still some chance in my mind that these can be what I called the indigenous Dogman, and I made a drawing of that in that first book, The Beast of Bray Road, Tailing Wisconsin's Werewolf, and it's now kind of all over the internet. I've pretty much lost any claim to it because so many people have used it and say, well, that's what everybody says it looks like. It's the one that comes closest to most description. Sometimes people see ones that, and they'll usually be related to a certain type of region where they're much bigger and more humanoid in their bodily structure. They'll have actual shoulders, which normal canines don't, because they're built to take for their front legs to take the pounding of running on those legs, and they need a much more flexible structure. Whereas we have shoulders, we have rotator cuffs, we have elbows that work in a certain way that we can throw a ball or throw it's almost like we're built to build our own weapons, so we can throw a spear or we can shoot a bow and arrow, that sort of thing, which puts us on a par with these animals, because otherwise, face it, we're kind of weak out there compared to other animals. We have no claws. We don't have the stealthy stalking abilities they do, the big jumping abilities. We're sort of forced to make our own armaments, but these things are built much more powerfully, and they don't have need of those things because they'll chase people sometimes. But I have yet to hear of anyone that lived to tell the tale, of course, that felt that it was, or that took a bite out of it or anything like that. They seem to really want to scare people, and it is territorial, in my opinion, the way that they act. And people will say, well, I knew it could get me in a second, or it could have just, bit my head off if it wanted to, but then it just ran into the bushes or it ran into the cornfield or the woods or whatever is there. So that's puzzling, too, because they look like regular animals. They seem to be flesh and blood. People see them drinking water, eating meat, defecating, doing all those kinds of things that you would do, but they aren't quite the same. They look at people, they stare them in the eye. People will say, I felt it was giving me this message, not in words, but to let me know that it was better than me, or it could get me if it wanted to, but then it doesn't. It just lets them go on their way.
I was just actually going to talk to you about that, because we got about just over 2.5 minutes before we go to break here at the bottom of the hour. Is a lot of people believe when they have had these contacts, these strange contacts with either Bigfoot or Dogman, that it's almost like they're getting this telepathic message from the creature: put your gun down, or that is the worst mistake you can make. Don't shoot me because it'll be bad for you, or something along those lines. And it's weird that so many of these stories about telepathy from this creature keep coming in, Linda.
Yeah, and these have popped up since the very beginning. You know, there was one woman that I interviewed not too long after the paper came out in the story, who was a medical technician, which often put her going into her job at the hospital at like 5 a.m. when it was still dark. And she was driving right on the state line between Wisconsin and Illinois, which, by the way, has more than its fair share of both Bigfoot and Dogman sightings. I don't know why that is, that state line area. But she's driving along this state line highway, and she said something caught her attention in the ditch over on the driver's side, and she could see something in her headlights. And so she slowed up and looked over into the ditch, and this horrible-looking canine-like creature was like baring all of its teeth, jumped up out of the ditch like as if to jump toward her and jump toward the car. And she was so startled, you know, she just stepped on the gas and got out of there. But just in that brief moment when she looked at it, and she said its eyes were shining yellow, which is canine, normal eye shine color, and baring its teeth like that. And she said she had this unmistakable message from it that if you tell anyone you saw me, I will come and get you. And she was so convinced of that. She did, and this lady's a medical technician. You know, she's not just any one person that you wouldn't trust. She was afraid to tell her husband about it for 3 days, for fear this thing would come and get her, because she didn't understand what it was. And I was there not too long after, and when she was telling this to me, she was she just relived it. Her face turned red. She was sobbing. It just, you know, startled her so much. And many, you know, I get kind of a kick out of everyone who says, oh, I want to see one of these. Why don't I see one? And I've been that way myself, so I understand. But lots of these people say they wish they had never seen it, and they try to forget it, but they remember it every single day of their lives.
Let's get more into the telepathy here after the break here, because I do have a couple more questions for you. Then we're going to get into your new book that you have coming out. It is on pre-order right now. Linda Godfrey is our guest tonight. I Know What I Saw. That's what we are getting into tonight as we talk monsters all night with the queen of cryptids right here on the Mighty SOR. We'll be back with more right after this.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio Live with Dave Scott on the Deep Talk Radio Network.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Are you tired of being blocked, shadow banned, or placed in jail for simply posting your thoughts on social media? Social Media Freedom can take care of that for you. Social Media Freedom is the newest and one of the best free new apps that allows you the freedom to post what you want, when you want. It takes seconds to download from your app store. Come join the tribe at Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thal, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now. The Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Hi there, this is Geraldine Orozco from San Francisco's Bay Area Meditation. I invite you to join me the first Tuesday of every month with Dave Scott for Spaced Out Radio's The Spiritual You. In this fast-paced world we live in, it's time for you to take some time for you. We'll cover every possible subject, from powerful meditation to healing techniques to your own intuition and spirituality. So come join us for The Spiritual You.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
We're bringing scientific thought to the paranormal. Hi there, this is Spaced Out Radio scientist Chris Cogswell. Join me, Chris Zuger, and Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month, where we break down the who from the woo when it comes to everything paranormal. We'll investigate and try to bring sensible answers to those straight and sometimes outlandish questions people have. Hey, not everything has an answer, but we'll do our best. Listen in to Reality Paranormal only on Spaced Out Radio.
You know, it's hard being the bad man of ufology, but that's just the way that I like it. This is Chris George Zuger, and I'll be hanging out with Dave Scott and SOR scientist Chris Cogswell for Reality Paranormal, the second Wednesday of every month. And our job is to break it down and come to conclusions as to what is really going on in the supernatural world. I'd love for you to join us right here on Spaced Out Radio.
Heading to Vancouver and looking for a night on the town? The Moose Vancouver is the bar that never stops rocking until 2 a.m. every night. The Moose has great food with everything on the menu from $6.95 to $8.95. Fantastic, vibrant staff and rock and roll that will bring you back to when the music was real, the hair was long, and the guitars were rocking. Get your party on at the Moose Vancouver, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Did you know Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi there, this is Tessa Nicole Thomas, and I'm here to take you on a paranormal journey each Saturday and Sunday night. Why change the station when you have it all right here? Together, we'll hang out and share some strange and scary stories. And don't forget, we have Psychic Sundays as well, so come tune in Spaced Out Weekend. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, only at spacedoutradio.com, where we own the night.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch? Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Coming soon to our website, spacedoutradio.com, is the SOR Space Travelers Club. For just $5 a month, you can get into a private area on our site where you can hang with other listeners in our chat room, post in our forum, and check out a bunch of exclusive content and store that won't be found anywhere else, including a nightly after-show party with Dave. It's going to be the best $5 a month you're going to spend. The SOR Space Travelers, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Welcome back to a chilly night from British Columbia. Sitting in the master's chair of SOR headquarters, I am Dave Scott, broadcasting to you live tonight. Linda Godfrey is our guest tonight. Her website, lindagodfrey.com, known as the Queen of Cryptids. We bring her back. Linda, thank you so much for coming on the show tonight.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And I don't call myself the Queen by any means, so I have.
I know. I do.
It's nice of you.
I do. It's that love and mutual respect that I have for you.
Oh, thank you.
I'm laying claim to it. But right before the break, we were talking about these weird telepathic communications that people seem to have when they encounter a Bigfoot or they encounter a Dogman or something along those lines. It's little situations like this that really make me wonder, how real are these creatures? And when I say real, I'm saying on a physical animal/mammal type creature rather than something supernatural. Now, I know you say it could be something supernatural, but do you believe that this creature does empower, or any of these cryptids empower some sort of power over people where people are just getting real-time communication from them?
Well, according to the witnesses, that is what they feel. They can't explain it. And, I don't know. I do think that the human mind is something that scientists are just now beginning to really make some big leaps and bounds and understand how these things work. And I read recently that they have a method now where they can sort of roughly tell what a person is thinking by applying these. I don't even know I can't remember how they do it. I think they had to apply little implants or something, but they could actually tell what people were thinking, basically. And or dreaming too, which is really scary. And there's just so much more to the human mind that is not due to any newfangled stuff. I mean, humans have been having amazing mind experiences from various sorts of things. And I'm not really talking about drugs. I'm talking about mystical visions and things like that, such as you read about in the Bible and other world religions. There's just so much more power to the human mind. And then, of course, you read about things like the Tibetan tulpas, which were thought forms that highly disciplined students of the religion there would train for years to be able to coalesce a thought form into something that either covered them or that went out from them and could do things sort of on its own recognizance, which is kind of an amazing thing, sustained by the power of this person's mind. And I've found similar accounts of people who are learning how to shapeshift, or appear to shapeshift anyway. It's more of what I've read is that in these cases it's more of a projection of a certain type, so that you'd be looking at someone and then they would have the appearance of a wolf or lion or whatever. And I don't have the book in front of me, but I did find a book where a woman was going through an initiation study on something very similar, and the medicine woman she was studying from did change her facial features from a wolf to a couple of other different animals. And when the student asked, "How did you do that?" the teacher said, "Well, it just depends on what I'm projecting." So maybe that's a key to everything. I'm not sure. But the human mind is just so amazing. So there are some people, some researchers who believe that there is sort of a free-form floating consciousness around the earth that lives in sort of another place than we do, and yet it's right here, and that it has the ability to use the human mind, to interact with the human mind so that it can appear in a different form. So there may be different types of shape-shifting and kind of fool the eye, that sort of thing going on in some cases. How many cases, I have no way of knowing. I can tell you that more of the things that seem like shapeshifters because they have human-type bodies, sometimes occasionally an item of clothing or other apparel, they're usually much bigger, like 8 feet tall, and their eyes will often glow red instead of the usual eye shine. And many times when these are reported, they're from people who are driving along the borders of native land reservations and of various different nations. Usually it's more toward the western states, but I've received a number of these over the years. And again, I just go by what I receive from people.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable in regards to that, because it sounds so unfathomable that these creatures could communicate that way and that they could ward off people just by communicating with their mind. I mean, that almost sounds something like right out of MK Ultra, to be absolutely honest, Linda.
Yeah, it does kind of remind you of all those mind control programs that are alleged and other things. But you have to keep in mind that the people also always say it wasn't words. You know, it wasn't like the King's English that they were saying this in. It was knowledge that I understood, which is even in a way more frightening, because something like that, you could feel it and take it for your own thought if you weren't looking at a 7-foot tall furry creature, to blame for it. And, that just seems really subversive and kind of creepy to me.
In your studies of Dogman, it has led to studies of other cryptid creatures as well, whether it's Bigfoot, whether it's trolls, gnomes, gargoyles, whatever it could be. Why do you think these sightings and these type of mystical creatures, with the experiences people are having, still get played down so much to this day as imagination or folklore?
Well, it's much easier to stomach that way. It's very hard to wrap your head around the fact that there may be entities around us that we can't see that are doing things we don't understand, or that are interacting with our minds to make us, to see these other things. Or perhaps there's a filter that's lifted from our eyes at times to see things that are there that we normally just can't see. And I liken this, I keep going back to the Bible because there are really good examples of a lot of these sorts of things. There's one back in the Old Testament where I can't remember the king. They were supposed to go, the army was supposed to go in and take care of this big bunch of people, and it didn't look like they could win. And one of the soldiers said, well, there's so many of them, and only so many of us. And the army commander, and again, I'm sorry, I can't remember the chapter or the verse right offhand, but the army commander said, prayed for this person's eyes to be opened, the filter taken off. And when he looked again, he could see there were like thousands of angelic forms and chariots and horses waiting to play their part in this crucial battle. And I've often thought, well, that's pretty interesting. There was a leader who knew what was happening, and somehow this man was given what we might call a second sight, or the ability to know what was actually there in this other realm, but yet able to have an effect on the turn this battle took, which is, these ancient battles were like swords clashing and horses falling, and, it wasn't like an easy, tidy operation. These things were there to help, whatever they were, and get into the fray, and they did win the battle. So when you can find associations with things like this that we might read and never realize all what's involved unless you stop and think about it. It all becomes a lot more interesting.
In your studies of Dogman, have you found a lot of similarities towards Bigfoot as well? Or do you think they are two completely different creatures on two completely different alpha planes?
Well, I don't know about the planes, or the alpha planes. That to me is just sort of beyond my knowledge, and I don't claim to be really a mystic or a scientist. But comparing the two creatures is something that I've done a lot of, because when I first started talking about these indigenous dogmen that the people were reporting, there were a lot of even researchers who said, no, there's no such thing. There are no upright dog-like creatures. They're all different types of Bigfoot. Called it the short snout Bigfoot or whatever, or the long snout Bigfoot, whatever. Snouted Bigfoot, I think, was the most common. But then my job has been to show that if you look at their anatomies, they're completely different in their build. And any witness who gets a good look with enough time and enough light to really see the head and the feet and everything will say for sure, I know what I saw, and hence the title of that forthcoming book. I know that it had flat feet. It was moving on flat feet with human knees that it bent forward. It had a head. You couldn't see the ears, but there weren't any ears sticking up on top of the head. It had a short, almost human-like face, and so I know that was not a canine. And then with a canine, they'll argue the opposite. It was walking with its legs bent backwards, which means they observed that it was walking on its toe pads. Digitigrade is what we would call it. And that also it would bend over a little because it wasn't built exactly to stand upright. They could see pointy ears on top of the head, fangs, fur covering the body in both cases, but no tail with the Bigfoot, and a definite tail usually with the canine. So there are a lot of anatomical observable differences. The behavior is different, though, in a lot of cases, because the Bigfoot are associated with making wood knocks and with constructing crude kind of log piles that they can get in and excuse me, that they can get into in the daytime and sort of hide in. And that's really not a canine thing. Canines don't have the opposable thumbs, or really the need to get down into something like that. To me, these things always seem like blinds, where they're ones that I've seen have, in every case, been right next to a really well-marked deer trail. And it always has seemed to me that it's a place for them to sort of hide out and hang out waiting for the time when the deer are moving. And that's kind of a different thing. Now, the ways that they're alike, of course, is the long, shaggy fur or short fur in some cases. The fact that they both love deer, love to eat it, that seems to be their favorite meal. And so they're in somewhat of a competition, I think, for the best deer catching zones. And oftentimes, if I put pins in the map and see who's where, when there's a new sighting, I noticed that I can almost draw a line. It's like they've drawn a territorial line, and one is on one side of the line, and the dogmen are on one side, the Bigfoot are on another. So they like the same food. They can both be upright with furry coverings all over their bodies, but other than that, they're differentiated to my mind.
When you first broke that story, literally, even though there are similar reports going back a couple centuries about this mythical creature, today, if we fast forward to it, there seems to be these Dogman reports jumping up all over the place. Do you think that people are actually seeing what they are seeing? Are they seeing maybe larger size wolves coming out? Do you think that they are seeing anything of the sort, or are they just looking for their 10 to 15 minutes of fame in the cryptid world?
Well, a very high percentage of people do not want their names used. They're not looking for any sort of fame. Some people will even, this is sort of frustrating, but some people will write me with this great sighting and then say, you know, I don't even want you to post this without my name because I'm just afraid somebody will figure out it's me and it's just for your own usage. Well, that doesn't do the world any good. Most people at least let me post them as long as I give them a pseudonym or something like that. So they're not, you know, they're not seeking publicity. And even the ones that do say they don't mind if their name is used, usually they're retired and they'll say, well, you know, I'm retired. I don't have to worry about my job anymore. I don't give a darn if someone calls me crazy. But they're not looking for attention still. You know, I find that very unusual. And when someone is looking for attention or wanting to be on a show or whatever, that's always sort of a red flag to me. And I kind of will look at them twice about that. Because the few times that I have discovered that I'm pretty sure somebody was faking it were incidents like that, where they were kind of younger people and real excited about being on a TV show, but then they wouldn't go through with it at the very end because I think they were afraid they might be found out. So, but most people, I believe, that write are very sincere. Some of them sure are definitely going to be seeing misidentified known creatures. I mean, it's just human nature. There's a certain percentage, small percentage, that are going to be doing that. There will be still a small percentage of the hoaxers. Just again, human nature. But by and large, most people, I think, are really sincere and just want to share their experience. Or they'll write me. They'll just say, "I just wanted to tell somebody about it who wouldn't call me crazy," and it's a really big relief to them to just kind of get it off their chests and know that they're not the only human in the world that has seen this thing.
The fear that people have when they come in contact with any type of folklorish type creature, is it easy to tell whether or not they are telling the truth and it's just not their imaginations bringing a story forward, Linda?
Well, I have noticed lots of times, especially when it's been kind of a close call or somebody was outside with the creature, that I can watch their face and just see them going through the whole thing as they're telling it. You know, much as the earlier one that I mentioned, their face will turn bright red or just drain of blood. Sometimes they'll have trouble not, choking back a tear, or they'll be just really nervous. Their hands are shaking. They're kind of just reliving it. And, I don't think that most people are talented at acting enough to get away with that sort of thing if it isn't real. And I do feel that most of them are. I do try to vet. I try to retain the devil's advocate position. And it's really nice and easy these days with the Internet. Somebody tells you a bunch of things, you can go and try and correlate them, even just, little mundane things such as, let's say, well, there was this Chattahoochee Creek that was right next to the boggy whatever, and I can go on, any of the Internet maps or my own maps and verify whether these two things existed or not. So, and if somebody is making something up, they probably will have a few bloopers in there like that. So I try and do that sort of thing. And I interview them in person if it's a place that I can get. I'm not funded by anyone, and it's not a high money-making profession by any means. Ask any cryptid researcher that you like. We're not in this. You can't be in it for the money and be in it enough to make a difference. You just have to go with it, and what it means is that you can't get to every place you would like to go. But
you must be invited absolutely everywhere in every state and province in North America. Come look at this creature, Linda. We need you ASAP.
Yeah. And I do have friends in other states that sometimes, I can say, hey, could you go look at this? And sometimes it works out, and sometimes they're so busy with their own things that, they can't get to it. But yeah, a lot of people, and it's not like I think some people have the mistaken impression that I've got like a 24-hour command center, with little vans, creature hunting vans ready to go in a crew, and kind of like the cryptid version of Ghostbusters. But, it's just not like that. It's just me. I've got all my usual business and mail and my own investigations to go to, and the writing and the conferences and all of that stuff. It ends up being a full-time full-time job, very much so, and I physically cannot get everywhere that I would like to for various reasons. Or I would if I could be in 20 places at once.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. What's the difference, as we go into the final 90 seconds here before we go to break at the top of the hour, between the Dogman and what you are used to reporting on and this bipedal canine that is said to be roaming the forests of these national parks in Pennsylvania? Butch Witkowski talks about it quite a bit on this show.
Yeah, I'm not completely familiar what it did. And he said bipedal canines. Well, they're...
Yeah, he's saying it's bigger, it's meaner, seems to be a little bit more aggressive than the Dogman that people are seeing out in the central part. Have you heard that?
Yeah, I have. And it doesn't surprise me that there might not be geographical variations. You know, in Wisconsin, we have from about Wausau over to Green Bay something people call the bear wolf. And this is not anything I started up. Hunters were seeing this thing out in the woods around this area, and it looked wolfish, canine-ish, except it had this big, thick chest, you know, and much more muscular limbs than normal, and was big, and they were calling it a bear wolf because it looked like a wolf but with kind of the girth of a bear, and yet it wasn't a bear. So it could be a regional, just variation on it, or it could be... There are also quadrupedal, supersized, very, very large canine-type animals that, again, I've had reported to me since the very beginning, 27 years ago, and just never knew what to do with them because they weren't on their hind legs, so it didn't seem like they were dogmen to me. I do write about those in my new upcoming book. I finally made some decisions, again, based on things that people send me. And these things, I think, are something very different, and I do have some opinions on them.
Right. Linda, I'm going to get you to hold on. We're going to go to break here at the top of the hour. The Queen of Cryptids, Linda Godfrey, our guest tonight on the Mighty SOR, hour number 2 with Linda, coming up right after this. Looking for the stories of the strange and weird that you will find hard to find anywhere else? Check out the SOR Newswire on our website. Our writers, led by Captain Shirk, are scouring the world for the oddest and most bizarre stories we can find. Everything from weird crime to suspenseful and paranormal. We're working hard for you to bring you the most intriguing news of your day. Check out the SOR Newswire at spacedoutradio.com today.
Every night on Spaced Out Radio, we have places for you to hang out. Hi, this is Carl. Join our SOR Space Travelers group on Facebook for live chat. On Twitter, using hashtag Spaced Out Radio, you can also join us in our Spreaker chat room. Check us out on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR. All of our archives are free on YouTube at Spaced Out Radio. By the way, I'll be watching you at your window until you do. Bye!
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio Live with Dave Scott on the Deep Talk Radio Network.
Get your horns up with me on Spaced Out Radio. This is Ron Bumblefoot THAL. Come tune in to SOR where you can hear me rock out with Little Brother Is Watching, the official theme song of Spaced Out Radio. And then come on over to bumblefoot.com where you can find out about my tour schedule, my music, and everything else. Bumblefoot.com keeps you up to date on what I'm doing and the best way to stay in touch with my music and music camps. Sign up for my newsletter at bumblefoot.com and remember, Little Brother Is Watching.
We are getting ready to relaunch the SOR Space Travelers Club at spacedoutradio.com. For $5 a month, you can join us for a plethora of features found nowhere else. Hang out in a private chat room during the show and after party. You can check out some exclusive content and a store specifically for you, as well as a private listener forum where you can post your thoughts, stories, and pictures. The SOR Space Travelers Club, coming soon to spacedoutradio.com.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy in Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
You know, it's hard being the bad man of ufology, but that's just the way that I like it. This is Chris George Zuger, and I'll be hanging out with Dave Scott and SOR scientist Chris Cogswell for Reality Paranormal, the second Wednesday of every month. And our job is to break it down and come to conclusions as to what is really going on in the supernatural world. I'd love for you to join us right here on Spaced Out Radio.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
On the first Tuesday of every month, I encourage you to come along for a journey with me, Geraldine Orozco, on The Spiritual You. Together, we will take a look at how to access the highest expression of yourself and change your life. Consciousness, ET contact, health, and wellness, we can talk about it all. So come along for a spiritual ride with me, Geraldine Orozco, on The Spiritual You, only on Spaced Out Radio.
Do you want to know what's really going on in your world? Do you have questions about who you can trust in the mainstream media? Then look no further than the Rebel Planet. Come get the straight answers right here at spacedoutradio.com. Join me, Jamie Sexton, creator of Rebel Planet News, as I fill you in on the stories behind the stories. All you truth seekers, be sure to tune in to Rebel Planet on spacedoutradio.com the third Thursday of every month.
The freedom to post what you want, when you want. That's the social media freedom you need. Social Media Freedom is the free app in your app store. No need to worry about going to jail or being shadow banned any longer. It's the freedom to say what you feel. The freedom to know Big Brother isn't watching. It's the way social media is supposed to be. Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free. Download from your app store today.
Find your escape where time has no limits. It's about living today and cherishing the heritage of yesterday. A spirit of adventure for what is new, with the nostalgia of the past. Your timepiece is a reflection of who you are. Life surrounded by beauty from the world around us to the soul within. EscapeWatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
The Call of the Wild is in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is one of the hottest bars and restaurants in the city. Open until 2 a.m. nightly, the Moose will rock you like a hurricane all night long. Great food with everything on the menu at $6.95 near the corner of Nelson and Granville. Get your horns up and come rock with us. The Moose Vancouver, the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Welcome back to the second hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for being with us. Tomorrow night on the show, Grant Cameron is back with our first 2019 UFO disclosure report. We get going at 9:06 Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern at spacedoutradio.com. We welcome back everyone listening in on the SOR Radio Network, Deep Talk Radio, Rev Radio, and so much more. Don't forget, all of our archives are free for you at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor and hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Rhinotelexomania. Rhinotelexomania is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, space travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night, right here on the mighty SOR. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. You can rock out to Bumblefoot. Go shopping right now at our Spaced Out Radio store. We got some great t-shirts and swag for you. And you can read up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire and so much more. Tonight we are talking with the Queen of Cryptids, Linda Godfrey is her name, lindagodfrey.com. She is a very, very experienced author in the world of cryptids, and we love having her here. Linda, thank you so much for coming on.
Again, thanks for having me.
Now, you got a brand new book. It's not due out for a few months. I realize you can't give away all the secrets, but it's my job as a journalist to push you. But nonetheless, it's called I Know What I Saw, Modern-Day Encounters with Monsters of New Urban Legend and Ancient Lore. That is one hell of a title, Linda.
Yeah, it is. And actually, my publishers were the ones who concocted it. Well, they were looking through the manuscript, and they kept seeing that people were saying, I know what I saw, because, as I noticed earlier, people are just adamant when they have a good look at something, they can understand what they're seeing. They say, I'm not stupid. I've got great eyesight. It was light out. I know this was not a bear. It was not anything else. And so my publishers, who are Penguin Random House, and they do a really good job, so I tend to trust them. They said, no, this really epitomizes, what the book is saying. And then the rest of it about the lore and the legend, what I tried to do was see if some of the sightings were based on legends that were in certain places, or if they sort of begat their own legends. And it turns out it feels sort of like this circle type of route that something will happen, and then a legend goes around it, and then people hear about that, and then another thing happens and it gets bigger, and then you can go the other way. And reverse that process too. And I just thought that was fascinating, the way that they sort of move organically, and how you can really find some historic reasons for a lot of these things if you look closely enough. So, it was sort of a complex book to write. That was the big struggle with this one. It was never for lack of material. It was for just trying to figure out how to present it in a coherent way. And it runs the gamut. It's different than my other books, because I am looking for things that were legend, and it goes all the way from things about dog ladies and dog women. There's one in there that I don't think many people have heard. Things like that, up to at the end, I have a really weird dream that a gentleman has that I normally wouldn't have put in a book, except it was very mythic in quality. He had a vision. It wasn't a dream, really. It was a vision that he had of his own dog meeting up with this other dog, and found out later that his own dog was expecting puppies, and so and this has a really deep antecedent in all kinds of myth and folklore, where something goes up to the heavenly realms, and there are divine or godlike beings like it that then cause it to have children of some sort or another, and usually
Weird.
yeah.
Very weird.
It's just really common. It's in the Bible. It's in Norse mythology. Just about any time there are godlike beings that impregnate other beings, that usually earth creatures, and then have children, or the Greek myths and all the Greek and Roman gods. You think of Poseidon and his son. What is the movie? I think Poseidon now begat Aquaman. I may have that right. May have that not exactly right, but things like it's very interesting to read how one mimics the other and seems to give birth to other types of folklore creatures.
You have, or let me rephrase this. Do you think that you have been pigeonholed in that Dogman realm because of your research, because of who you are? And is this latest book a way for you to expand, to say, look, I'm not unidimensional here. I can study, and I have written and looked at and researched other types of cryptid phenomenon as well?
Well, I think actually it wasn't any sort of conscious thought. It was just a process of all these years. I can't help thinking about them and, looking for corollaries and then trying to sort of put them together to make some sense out of all of them. But I probably did that more consciously in my latest published book, which was Monsters Among Us. And what I did in that book was I went through a lot of kind of unusual types of cryptid stories that again, I might have left out of previous books, but then I just had the sort of epiphany that people were writing these experiences to me, and perhaps I was filtering them, through my own biases, and that I should provide these things for people to look at and decide for themselves. For instance, a lady who literally turns into a werewolf in a church in Illinois while a family of 4 is sitting straight across from her in a pew and sees the whole thing. That kind of story I might not have printed before, but because they had such impeccable characters, and it was a family of 4 people that all saw it, that were reporting, and every single thing down to the most minute detail that I checked out about them, interviewed them in person 3 times. Nothing ever came up to make me doubt them. Things like that, more transformative things. But the other thing that I wanted to do and did was on any of the case reports or stories that were sent to me where there was a date and I could tell when and where it happened, then luckily, again, because of the internet nowadays, you can go and find out if there were any solar flares that day, what the phase of the moon was, were there UFO sightings around the area, all of those things, and then kind of compile a little look at and see, which ones of these might apply. And I was interested now, and this is not like a statistically valid sort of exercise because it's one book, a limited number of things, but I thought it was a good start. And among all of these that I tracked, it was probably easiest in most cases to find the moon phase and the solar flares. The solar flares were present or prominent in more cases than were the moon phases. And when there were moon phases mentioned, they were more often the 3/4 moon rather than the full moon. So I thought that was interesting because it kind of puts to rest, it makes it seem mythical. Well, and it is mythical that the werewolf rises each month, when the full moon is there. That I think we can pretty safely say that's myth. And it's interesting that the solar flares seem to have so much more to do with it when we're just learning about, the electromagnetic field of the Earth and of people. We all have our own electromagnetic fields. How are we affected by that kind of big energy push from our own sun? So I think these are all things that are interesting to look into. And when you have it laid out in little graphs like that after each story, you can easily compare them for yourself.
There are so many legends, lores, folklores out there in regards to these topics. Michelle on Twitter is asking about trolls, and she is wondering what your thoughts are on these creatures that live under bridges. We're not talking the internet trolls out there who seem to harass all of us, but the trolls that come from the folklore legends. Do you believe that they are out there?
Well, you'd think there must be something out there, because almost every place, every civilization, every time, every location has its own legends and lore about tiny, tiny people. And sometimes the trolls, I know there are certain places in, I don't know if it's Norway or Finland, some of those very northern European countries that believe the trolls are more like Bigfoot, or can blow up to look like Bigfoot if they wish to do so. And there are also some of those Norse countries that still believe in the power of trolls to cause great harm to people who build houses on the trolls' preferred roadways and paths and things like that, to where it affects building regulations in that country. So I'd say that's putting a great deal of credence. And then you get into the Native Americans, and there are the little people such as the Pukwudgies, which is one of my favorite cryptid. You don't know if you can call them a cryptid because they're not really animals. They're supposed to be tiny human-like creatures, and most of them are sort of mystical. They're not necessarily meant to be tiny actual humans, but humans can and do appear in real life in those tiny sizes. You know, if you remember Tom Thumb, who was the famous circus performer, who was really, really small, not a midget size, but smaller than that, and well proportioned. We can be human and still be very, very tiny. We can be human and be, you know, an NBA basketball player. So size is really just relative with humanity. But when you talk about trolls, I think people are generally thinking about some sort of mythical or legendary sort of people. And again, even Hawaii has its menehune. Most of these troll-like creatures have this in common, that they could really mess you up if they wanted to, and they often do that if you get them mad. They'll make you sick, kill your cow, do things to your house, that sort of thing. But if you're good to them, you stay off what they consider their paths, then you might even be nicely ignored or perhaps even helped by them. That seems to be a very general tradition with troll-like creatures worldwide. I did do some research into this because I have a finished novel that I'm hoping to put out sometime very soon too, about kobolds, which are generally known as mining helpers in mines in Germany, and then some of them, when the mines played out, would become household creatures after that. And so I have a tale about a certain kobold. So I have done some research into this, and it is very interesting to. That's where I first realized how universal this idea is, of the very, very small people. I almost think they're almost related to another phenomenon that happens, at least in the United States. I don't know if it's in other countries, but some places it's supposed to be a little colony, a little lost colony of little people, and these would be more like, just the small people that like to be called little people. They used to be called midgets. I don't think that's a preferred term anymore, so I try not to use it. But some of the places where they lived are still known as Midgetville, or there are other names for them. And there are usually legends. For instance, there's one in Wisconsin, just kind of north-south of Milwaukee, actually. I'm sorry, not north-south, southwest of Milwaukee. And I get a little nervous talking this time of night. My vocal cords start wearing on.
I know the feeling.
So please excuse me if I'm stammering or something. But they're pretty interesting little legend that they have is that you turn on this road called Mystic Lane, and it is called Mystic Lane, and that this is the lane that leads to the home of the Haunchies, and their little place is supposed to be called Haunchieville. And supposedly some time ago, they all retired from a circus or something and wanted a secret place to live, and so they built these little homes that were built to their specifications to fit them kind of behind a cornfield at the end of this Mystic Lane. And they really did not want outsiders. So if people came and began getting too close to the field or trying to drive through back to see the homes, this man would come out driving a black pickup truck. Now, and you'll find very similar things in old folklore. That would be like a black horse instead of the black pickup truck. And he'll have a rifle with him, and if you still mess with him, then the little Haunchies come running out of the cornfield with small-sized rakes and hoes and things like that, and they will attack you with those things. And it's kind of fun because there were lots of accounts people had written in to the Weird Wisconsin, the Barnes & Noble Weird Wisconsin, which I co-authored, and then I also did Weird Michigan. And they would write in and tell their tales of lore that they knew about the Haunchies. And I've had some people that seem extremely credible write and tell me that these are indeed real and their own experience with it. And others say, no, it's hogwash, I know this and that. Well, I do have them in a chapter on little people in the I Know What I Saw book that's coming out. And this also goes into, I kind of crossbred it with elves and that sort of thing. And I found out up in the southwestern corner of Canada, on two adjacent islands, I had two unrelated letters from people who didn't know one another, who had both had pretty strong elf sightings on those islands in southern Canada, which I thought was very, very interesting.
That doesn't surprise me. My area where I live, almost everybody in the neighborhood where I am has fairy gardens.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, fairies and the fae are quite prevalent in this area. And also, when David Weatherly and Ross Allison were up here doing some investigation and taking part in our mini Paracon that we did up here in the fall, we met up with a gentleman up here who was a former chief of the local First Nations. And he says on one of the mountains up by their reserve, there is actually a colony of little people. And according to him, pardon me, excuse me, according to him, we have to wait till the snow melts, and then he would be willing to drive us up this mountain, and we would have to get to about a halfway point, and there's a spirit of a grizzly bear that will tell us whether or not we are allowed to go any further. If the grizzly bear allows us to go, it's about another mile's walk up the mountain, and then we can see where the village is. But it all depends on the spirit of this grizzly bear. So we may be trying that this summer.
Interesting. Wow, well, maybe I'll have to run up to Canada and try that with you. That sounds really fantastic, although I'm kind of bear phobic. I think the least spirit that I'd ever want to see would be the spirit of a grizzly bear.
Yeah, I have no idea. I have a feeling that with my luck, I probably would not be invited in, but it would be kind of cool to experience it. It's funny because what got us started on that subject, Linda, was we were asking him about Bigfoot. And because just about another 30 minutes beyond where their First Nation land is, there's a lot of Bigfoot sightings. And I was asking him about the Bigfoot in the area, and he's like, no, we don't get too much Bigfoot activity around here. He goes, but very often our members are taken by extraterrestrials.
No way. Wow.
Yeah.
Did he describe them, the extraterrestrial? Did he mean craft or creatures
both.
or what?
He said, and this was back in September, he said as recently as a couple weeks before that, when he told us, his son happened to be walking home with a buddy, and they were chased by a UFO.
Wow, that must have been scary. What did it? How far did it pursue them? What did it look like?
Oh, he didn't get into detail with me. He's like, well, we'll have to sit down and talk, because we were kind of in a public forum at that point. But I'm definitely going to try and get a hold of him and have that conversation and so on and so forth. But you have to, whether it's little people, Bigfoot, aliens, or Dogman, whatever it may be, how important is it for us as people who are intrigued by this field to take that step a little further, Linda, and we only got about 2 minutes time, to listen to these First Nations stories who are much more grounded with the land and nature?
Oh, yeah. I've always said, they've been here much longer than we have. And so I've always tried to ask them about Bigfoot, the true nature of Bigfoot and the Wolfman or Dogman. And what I've heard from very many of them, including one Ho-Chunk anthropologist / elder, is that they both are essentially originally spirit people. They come from the spirit world, and that they were here before we were. They can go back and forth when they wish to, and that they'll be here after we are not.
It is very interesting. Very interesting, because I think a lot of these mysteries, if we combined science with the history that First Nations have in dealing with these creatures throughout the millennia, I think we would get a little bit further in our research and studies trying to figure out what exactly they are.
Well, and I think that the First Nation people are maybe beating us to that and combining their historic notes that they have, and they don't tell all of them, there's a lot that hasn't been put out to the world, with scientific instruments, and many are training their people as, like this woman that I talked to, anthropologists, different types of scientists who can go and measure things and figure out things about the atmosphere and the sun and things that relate to their legends. And I think that's very exciting, and hopefully we'll see some great things coming out from that.
I think so, too. And I think we got to keep an open mind with it. And it's all about trying to push the research forward. And as long as we are doing that, we are going to be getting closer to the answers. It's all this tension that people want to build that really, really pushes those answers away. Linda, I'm going to get you to hold on as we are going to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. We're coming up to the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Linda Godfrey, the Queen of Cryptids, is our guest tonight. Her website is lindagodfrey.com. I almost gave our website there for some silly reason, but it's lindagodfrey.com. More cryptid talk with Linda coming up right after the break.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio Live with Dave Scott on the Deep Talk Radio Network.
We're bringing scientific thought to the paranormal. Hi there, this is Spaced Out Radio scientist Chris Cogswell. Join me, Chris Zuger, and Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month, where we break down the who from the woo when it comes to everything paranormal. We'll investigate and try to bring sensible answers to those straight and sometimes outlandish questions people have. Hey, not everything has an answer, but we'll do our best. Listen in to Reality Paranormal only on Spaced Out Radio.
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch? Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Did you know Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi there, this is Tessa Nicole Thomas, and I'm here to take you on a paranormal journey each Saturday and Sunday night. Why change the station when you have it all right here? Together, we'll hang out and share some strange and scary stories. And don't forget, we have Psychic Sundays as well, so come tune in Spaced Out Weekend. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, only at spacedoutradio.com, where we own the night.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
You know, it's hard being the bad man of ufology, but that's just the way that I like it. This is Chris George Zuger, and I'll be hanging out with Dave Scott and SOR scientist Chris Cogswell for Reality Paranormal, the second Wednesday of every month. And our job is to break it down and come to conclusions as to what is really going on in the supernatural world. I'd love for you to join us right here on Spaced Out Radio.
Are you tired of being blocked, shadow banned, or placed in jail for simply posting your thoughts on social media? Social Media Freedom can take care of that for you. Social Media Freedom is the newest and one of the best free new apps that allows you the freedom to post what you want, when you want. It takes seconds to download from your app store. Come join the tribe at Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Hi there, this is Geraldine Orozco from San Francisco's Bay Area Meditation. I invite you to join me the first Tuesday of every month with Dave Scott for Spaced Out Radio's The Spiritual You. In this fast-paced world we live in, it's time for you to take some time for you. We'll cover every possible subject from powerful meditation to healing techniques to your own intuition and spirituality. So come join us for The Spiritual You.
Coming soon to our website, spacedoutradio.com, is the SOR Space Travelers Club. For just $5 a month, you can get into a private area on our site where you can hang with other listeners in our chat room, post in our forum, and check out a bunch of exclusive content and store that won't be found anywhere else, including a nightly after-show party with Dave. It's going to be the best $5 a month you're going to spend. The SOR Space Travelers, only at spacedoutradio.com.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thal, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
Heading to Vancouver and looking for a night on the town? The Moose Vancouver is the bar that never stops rocking until 2 a.m. every night. The Moose has great food with everything on the menu from $6.95 to $8.95. Fantastic, vibrant staff and rock and roll that will bring you back to when the music was real, the hair was long, and the guitars were rocking. Get your party on at the Moose Vancouver, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
We passed the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters in snowy British Columbia. And we welcome you back to tonight's show. We have Linda Godfrey, the Queen of Cryptids, with us tonight. LindaGodfrey.com is her website. You can get a pre-order of her brand new book on there. Yes, it is called I Know What I Saw, Modern-Day Encounters with Monsters of New Urban Legend and Ancient Lore. Get your pre-order now. It's coming out later this spring. Linda, thank you so much for being with us. Welcome back.
My pleasure to be here. Thank you.
You had to, or you have a little story that you want to share with us about a report that you've been following.
Well, this was something that someone snail mailed me a copy of it. It was actually printed in an older Fate magazine. It didn't have the date on it, but it was issue 733. If anybody has this, I probably actually have my own copy of it here somewhere. But so many people want to know what, I talk about regular or normal sighting, quote unquote, sightings of the Dogman, and I tend to forget sometimes there's a whole base of people who doesn't know what a regular or normal Dogman sighting is. And this is one, and this has other ramifications that I'll get into after I read it. But again, I received this via snail mail in the last week or so, just kind of unexpected, and the title caught my eye because the title was Dog Walks on Hind Legs. And the person wrote that they were, they described themselves as an army brat. When I was 16 years old, late 1970s, I was living with my family on the military base in Fort Knox, Kentucky. Kentucky is one of those states. My friend Bart Nunnally writes a lot of great books about Kentucky. It was summer, and together with a few of my friends, I was playing tennis at one of the residential areas after dinner and later into the evening. The courts were lighted, however, as it turned 10 p.m., and people were turning to head home. A friend of mine lived near me and offered to walk me home. I certainly appreciated it because I didn't like the idea of walking about 15 minutes by myself in the dark. The tennis courts were adjacent to the woods. That's the point where I always go, da, 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 because when something's adjacent to the woods and you're out at 10 p.m., that's just a really typical start. And it's also typical, many of the letters that I get are from people who are grown now but had their incidents when they were in their teens, because teens have all this leisure time, or at least they did then, maybe more so than now, to be and the motivation to be outdoors, hanging out with their friends, staying out late, and just have the ability to observe nature and just be in the right place at the right time for something to appear. The person adds, close to the edge of the woods was a street light giving a pool of light. The surrounding area was already quite dark. Suddenly, about 40 feet from us, and between us and the street light, came walking what appeared to be a large dog, like a Labrador retriever, except it was walking on its hind legs the whole time as it passed the pool of light. We could see it as a silhouette. We just stared at it and made comments to each other like, "Do you see that? And what is it?" Even though it was not hurrying, it went very quickly and hidden by the dark, perhaps into the woods. We were certainly unsettled and hurried on our way. I was even more grateful that he was walking me home. We wondered to each other if it could have been a bear cub, but we agreed it really looked like a large black Labrador retriever walking on its hind legs. And this is a really common sort of sighting. You know, it walks by the people. They're afraid. They don't know what it is. They're probably more afraid, people write usually, that they're afraid that they can't recognize it more so than they are afraid that they're going to be eaten or something. But I was reading this, and I'd read it a couple of times, and I thought, well, that's an interesting, you know, it has just a lot of those little things about it that make it a very good typical sighting. Well, I flipped it over, and I realized on the back side of this page was a story that someone else had written in that I did remember reading years ago. It was about a woman whose mother had died, and for some reason she started to see eagles flying overhead whenever she was thinking of her mother. They would just appear. And I remember in 1998 my dad died, and he for some reason liked hawks, and I thought, well, that's a really cool thing. I'll just think of a hawk, taking it not as being to me as a sign sent from heaven, but something that I voluntarily did just to jog my memory and make a thought of him. Right. And here it was on the back page, and I'd been having this experience really intensely. Like the past week, I've been seeing hawks in just the oddest places. I was driving somewhere and had a hawk, and these were all the small hawks. I had one just buzz my car going the opposite direction. Another one flew right over my car, right in front of the windshield, and I had another one on the right of my car, and I felt like they were surrounding my car and almost protecting me. And I'm thinking, is it really me, you know, saying to myself, I'm going to see hawks and think of my dad? Or is there some way that people can influence things a little bit on Earth, or maybe somebody can do that for them where they are? I don't know. But I just thought that was sort of a neat package of how sometimes things all that you're interested in all coalesce in one place and make you give a lot of extra attention to them that you maybe would not ordinarily have thought to do. So, and I'm sure there are plenty of people, I bet you'll get some notes from readers who say, yes, I see bluebirds every time I think of my grandmother, or something like that, because I think it's a fairly common thing.
I have a friend of mine, an ET contactee, Samantha Mowat is her name, and she knows when she is going to be abducted because she sees blue butterflies. Doesn't matter if it's in the dead of winter or in summertime. Blue butterflies. And that's how she knows, and that's when she gets visitation. And so there is, I believe, something supernatural in regards to things like that happening. And maybe they are conduits to the other side to try and relax us, even though deep down in our subconscious we're sitting there saying, oh, crap, I can't believe this is happening again, whether it's ET contact or contact with a loved one on the other side, whatever it may be.
Yeah, I don't know how she would feel. I know I always feel really kind of happy and comforted when I see a hawk that seems to be, you know, flying really close to my car, or sitting right outside the window, or doing something where it almost looks like it's trying to get my attention. I take that as a good and happy thing. But I don't know. Do you know how does she feel when she sees a blue butterfly in winter and knows that this experience is coming?
Oh, it's been happening to her since childhood, so she's pretty used to it by now. And, you know, she goes, sometimes the contact is something that she can't handle, but for the majority of time, she really doesn't mind the experience. Because it's not always negative.
Wow, that's very interesting.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, very, very much. Now, I was going to mention one other thing, too, in case this interests you. It's something else that's been happening more, is that I tend to get more and more letters and different types of contacts from retired law officials of various types, sheriff's deputies, policemen, whatever, and saying that they now want to tell their stories. And I did have one that's fairly recent that happened in Iowa. And again, if you want me to just kind of, I'll sort of read through.
Love you to.
because this one's pretty interesting. And he starts out, I was on patrol as a deputy sheriff for the county and was usually assigned to the Highway 13 and Highway 30 corridors in Iowa. However, I recall a particular July 1st that a young man, 16 or 17 years old, had been sucked into a storm drain which emptied into a lake near the Quaker Oats plant. And he was part of the search party, to make that part of the story short. I parked my cruiser at what I believe was the electric company storage yard. The yard had what I had estimated to be a 10-foot fence that ran parallel to a paved bike trail, on the other side of which runs a large concrete spillway to siphon off floodwaters. It was roughly 11:30 p.m. to 11:45 p.m., just about what it is now at the time we're listening to this. I estimate only because I assure you there never was, nor will be, an official statement or record with my name on it telling this story. As I left the lot, I was at the north end of the lake, headed west on foot, with lots of brush, saplings between the spillway and trail, so I proceeded on to the point where the trail turns south. There are multiple tracks at the turn I mentioned before, and only the track furthest from myself had a train on it. With my attention on the spillway, I hardly noticed at first a faint red-colored light a distance north from my position. It was coming down the track on the other side of the train. I had thought it perhaps the taillights of a car. Not being from that patrol route, I had no knowledge that there was, in fact, no road in that direction. There ain't much things in the world that scare me, but simply I've seen some blank in my blanking days. But nothing prepared me for that night. The lights disappeared, and that was that, or so I'd figured. About 5 minutes passed before I hear snorting, almost sniffing sound coming from the other side of the tracks. When I turned my light on, and to this day, I wish I hadn't. It had pointed ears and a long muzzle, and it looked me right in the face before it bolted into the timber. The first thing I saw were the eyes. They glowed a dull red. The thing was at least 8 foot tall, pushing 450. Maybe this is the big thing that Butch Witkowski was talking about, because it sounds about that size. Pushing 450 in weight. I judge this by the fact that I am 6'4", and weighed 280, and was about shoulder level to train car, and this thing was taller than that. It was not a mask, and it was not a person in a costume. You're going to have to break a man in half to put him into a suit like that. Who would walk up on an armed man with a police radio in full uniform and risk getting shot? I remember it was surreal. So I guess now finally I know what's in the dark now.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
How much more credible are those reports when they come from officers or former officers?
Well, I do think that they're more credible because these are people who are trained to observe whatever is not normal. Oh, there actually is one more little ending to that story. I'll go quickly because this also speaks to the credibility issue. People can say or think what they want, but even with the chambered round and a full magazine in a Glock 40, I didn't feel like I had enough firepower. I unholstered and fell back toward the trail and to the electric company storage yard, putting the fence to my back, and made a hasty retreat to the lot with my cruiser. I don't think I holstered my pistol till I got out of the park. I never spoke of it then, and honestly don't know why I am now, but one thing is for certain. It knew I was there, and it was watching my every move. I'll never go back, and I no longer work with the department, but I still carry a Glock with hollow point rounds tipped with silver, and I rarely do, leave my home at night. Well, they do sell bullets tipped with silver. They don't sell solid ones that I know of, but so you can take that or leave it. But
I mean, you can just tell by the wording that gentleman is using that there's some fear in his writing.
Right. And years later, he did not give me an exact date. I think I have it in another. I wrote it back, and I think I have it on another document. But yeah, I believe him, and I know enough retired deputies and policemen and police women that have talked to me that there's sort of a ring to the way they describe things because they're trained not only to be looking for the unusual, but to record it. And I think that shows up in his work here.
We got about 7 minutes here before we got to go to break here, and I would like to ask some audience questions if you don't mind.
Oh, I love audience questions.
Yeah, they've been waiting for a while. Let's start with Jason. Jason says, Linda, you say that the typical canine eye shines in yellow. What are your thoughts on the reported red eye shine of Dogman sightings?
Well, my thoughts are that normally, like in the great majority of cases that I've received, and you have to think, I've been doing this for 27 years, and I still average 1 or 2 a week, and you do the math, and that's a lot of them. They're almost always, when they're the regular, again, quote unquote, regular sized, which is like maybe 5.5 to 7 foot tall creatures, that they are a yellow or yellowish green. The ones that have the red eye shine, according again to the things that I receive from people myself, maybe others have received different things, but the ones that have the red eye shine usually have something different. Either they prove themselves to be more of the phantom type, the vanishing, unvanishing, or they are the larger type with the humanoid bodies, very often found near First Nation people reserve lands. One or the other, or they even sometimes resemble the large black dogs that were called black shuck, or by other names in Great Britain, and still are in many cases. So it always seems to me that the red glowing eyes have something to do with a different kind of upright canine, and that they're not the same thing as the ones you regularly see running along the road.
Couple questions coming in from Twitter. Let's start off with Andrew here. He says, CERN's largest Hadron Collider, or the Large Hadron Collider, the world's largest and most powerful particle accelerator, started up in September 2008. Some believe scientists are attempting to open up windows into other dimensions. Have you noticed an uptick in any sort of cryptid sightings since 2008 began?
Well, I have, but I really credit it more to the internet than anything else, because after 2008, that's when people started having groups. There were Yahoo groups, and then those sort of evolved into the Facebook, and we really started getting more into the very active internet users, by everyday people using the internet, which really started kind of an explosion in the cryptid world, because suddenly people could communicate with one another. First mostly about Bigfoot, and then I had started with the Dogman sometime around then. I had a beastofbrayroad.com site that you can still get parts of it. I've been trying to deconstruct it, but I'm not very good at it, and there's still a few things up on there. And again, that's just beastofbrayroad.com where you can find it. So I think that once people became aware of how many sightings there had been, and different formats developed on the internet for sharing these stories, that the awareness made people feel freer to tell their own stories, and maybe had them looking for unusual things that they might have ignored otherwise too, or just put down in denial, which is another really common reaction. People will see these things and then they just deny it. Like, nope, I didn't see that. I absolutely didn't see it. And we can be pretty good at fooling ourselves. But once they get a chance to find out they weren't odd for seeing it, that other people have, then they feel emboldened to tell their own story. So I really think that that's probably the main thing. And I don't know if having these collectors are really going to do anything for opening portals or not. I've heard a lot about that, and I'm sorry, I just don't feel that I have the scientific know-how to really answer what they may or may not do.
We can move on here, and we only got about 2.5 minutes left, and this is kind of a combined question between Catherine and Tripp here. So, kind of combining the two, what if people actually aren't seeing a werewolf or a dogman, but they're seeing the energy that's linked to people from a different age, or tribal hunters who used to wear furs who were maybe killed because other hunters thought they were animals? Could we be looking into a different dimension?
Well, I think that's always possible, and our cutting-edge scientists really are formulating and then confirming that, according to their calculations, that there must be other dimensions of some type. And not everybody would use that word dimension. I don't know what the exact correct one, but you could say other realm, other world. They show up as being almost necessary for our universe to exist as we now understand it in physics. And when I say physics, my eyes start spinning around like peas in a cup or something, because, again, that's above my pay level. But I can understand enough to know that people smarter than me are saying, yeah, we don't know exactly what they are, but they can exist. They must exist if these formulas we already accept are true. So that puts these things out of the realm of fairy tales and mere TV show things. Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel, those companion wonderful programs, had them hopping into different dimensions all the time. And this is where I throw my note of caution in, is in the TV version, they could just jump into this other dimension to follow the demon of the day, and they'd be able to breathe, and there would be other things they could relate to. They'd be standing on solid ground. We don't know if that would be possible to happen for any of these other types of worlds or dimensions that are being predicted by our TOPS physics equations. So it's tantalizing because we're being told they're there, but we don't really know what they could do, or if we could access them, or other things could access us.
30 seconds asking Robin's question here. In your opinion, are gnomes real?
I know people personally who have seen them. So I have to say they're real. They may not always be visible in our reality, but I do think that they are real in at least some concrete sense, because the reports of them are so similar. And like I said, some people I really am close to and know well have had firsthand experiences. People you wouldn't think.
John Tenney, we know that story. That's the first question we ask John every time he's on the show. How's your gnome? Do that.
Yeah, he's got a really interesting, great speaker.
Very true. Linda, you hold on. We're going to take a break here at the top of the hour. Linda Godfrey, we have the Queen of Cryptids for another half hour on the show. Stay tuned. Hour 3 coming up right after this. At spacedoutradio.com, we have a little bit of everything for you to stay up late. So while you're there, check out our SOR Newswire, where our team brings you stories of the weird and strange to the WTF from around the globe. News on Bigfoot, UFOs, paranormal, Darwinian-type crime tales. It's the stories that the mainstream media usually won't touch. Well, we got them all on the SOR Newswire, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Come hang out with Spaced Out Radio, where we own the night. This is Carl. You can follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, and during the show, use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio to chat with us live. On Instagram, at Dave Scott SOR. On Facebook, give our page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. SOR archives are free on YouTube at Spaced Out Radio. Come join us, or I will come join you. See you at your window.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio Live with Dave Scott on the Deep Talk Radio Network.
Find your escape where time has no limits. It's about living today and cherishing the heritage of yesterday. A spirit of adventure for what is new with the nostalgia of the past. Your timepiece is a reflection of who you are. Life surrounded by beauty from the world around us to the soul within. EscapeWatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
We are getting ready to relaunch the SOR Space Travelers Club at spacedoutradio.com. For $5 a month, you can join us for a plethora of features found nowhere else. Hang out in a private chat room during the show and after party. You can check out some exclusive content and a store specifically for you. as well as a private listener forum where you can post your thoughts, stories, and pictures. The SOR Space Travelers Club, coming soon to spacedoutradio.com.
You know, it's hard being the bad man of ufology, but that's just the way that I like it. This is Chris George Zuger, and I'll be hanging out with Dave Scott and SOR scientist Chris Cogswell for Reality Paranormal, the second Wednesday of every month. And our job is to break it down and come to conclusions as to what is really going on in the supernatural world. I'd love for you to join us right here on Spaced Out Radio.
Get your horns up with me on Spaced Out Radio. This is Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Come tune in to SOR where you can hear me rock out with Little Brother Is Watching, the official theme song of Spaced Out Radio. And then come on over to bumblefoot.com where you can find out about my tour schedule, my music, and everything else. Bumblefoot.com keeps you up to date on what I'm doing and the best way to stay in touch with my music and music camps. Sign up for my newsletter at bumblefoot.com and remember, Little Brother Is Watching.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
On the first Tuesday of every month, I encourage you to come along for a journey with me, Geraldine Orozco, on The Spiritual You. Together, we will take a look at how to access the highest expression of yourself and change your life. Consciousness, ET contact, health, and wellness, we can talk about it all. So come along for a spiritual ride with me, Geraldine Orozco, on The Spiritual You, only on Spaced Out Radio.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
The freedom to post what you want, when you want. That's the social media freedom you need. Social Media Freedom is the free app in your app store. No need to worry about going to jail or being shadow banned any longer. It's the freedom to say what you feel. The freedom to know Big Brother isn't watching. It's the way social media is supposed to be. Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free. Download from your app store today.
Do you want to know what's really going on in your world? Do you have questions about who you can trust in the mainstream media? Then look no further than the Rebel Planet. Come get the straight answers right here at spacedoutradio.com. Join me, Jamie Sexton, creator of Rebel Planet News. as I fill you in on the stories behind the stories. All you truth seekers, be sure to tune in to Rebel Planet on spacedoutradio.com the third Thursday of every month.
The Call of the Wild is in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is one of the hottest bars and restaurants in the city. Open until 2 a.m. nightly, the Moose will rock you like a hurricane all night long. Great food with everything on the menu at $6.95 near the corner of Nelson and Granville. Get your horns up and come rock with us. The Moose Vancouver, the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Great to have you with us. Tomorrow night on the show, we talk about ET UFO disclosure. Grant Cameron makes his return to the show for the first time in 2019. Always glad to have Grant on the show. We get going at 9:06 Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern at spacedoutradio.com. We welcome back everyone listening in on the SOR Radio Network, Deep Talk Radio, Revolution Radio as well. And don't forget, you can catch all of our archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. They are free for you. Go in, sit back, enjoy. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Rhinotelexomania. Rhinotelexomania is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night, right here on the mighty SOR. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. You can rock out to Bumblefoot. Go shopping right now at our Spaced Out Radio store. Read up on the SOR Newswire by Captain Shirk and so much more. For the final time tonight, we introduce Linda Godfrey. Her website, lindagodfrey.com. And, of course, we call her the Queen of Cryptids around here, which is never an issue in my books because she's just that amazing. Her new book, you can pre-order it now, is called I Know What I Saw, Modern Day Encounters with Monsters of New Urban Legend and Ancient Lore. Linda, thank you so much for staying up late on the East Coast with us. Really a pleasure.
I just always enjoy being on your show. Thank you.
Well, it's an honor. Thank you so much. I want to continue with the audience questions here, but first, you want to give our audience a little bit of an opportunity on where they could see, get a sneak peek of a new documentary video that you're in.
Yeah, in fact, we're hoping to post it within a week or so, and it will have its own page at lindagodfrey.com. You'll just see there's a separate page for it, but the documentary is going to be called Great Ghost Cats of the Baraboo Hills. And actually, this is the first time I've announced that title because we're that close to it. We're in post-production would be the proper way to say it. With it's 90% shot or more. And there will be a 2-minute trailer, as I said, and it relates to one of the chapters in the new book. So gives you a little hint. And that book, by the way, will also be announced at my website when that comes on. But if you just go to lindagodfrey.com and follow me, like me and follow my website there, then you'll get the announcement automatically. And I'm not one who posts every 2 minutes, so don't worry, you're not going to be having, things popping up for me every second. In fact, I'm much the other way. It needs updating now, but I've got a whole pile of new report stories to add too. So just and there's also a place where you can go to on that site to report a sighting if you have one.
Let's get to Marty's question in Las Vegas, and we always appreciate Marty hanging on out with us. He's asking, Linda, what do you think of First Nation people's legends of the Thunderbird, a cryptid we seem to seldom hear much detail about?
Yeah, I did some work, research on the Thunderbird for my book. Now I'm drawing a blank, and I got it sitting right here in front of me. American Monsters. How much easier could that be to remember? American Monsters, where I start out with the section on flying things. And I went looking, I did quite a long, lengthy search of images. A lot of people hear Thunderbird and they think of like a pterodactyl or a prehistoric thing like that, but almost all of the Native American depictions that I found were of some sort of raptor that looked more like a hawk or an eagle with feathers. And in many of the traditions, what the Thunderbirds do, they're almost like gods, not quite, but they kind of rule the sky, and what they do is balance the skies, and they constantly have to battle with the water spirits to make sure that we have good rain and not great thunderstorms or drought, one or the other. So they're very, very important in that way. And present-day Native American medicine men that I know of in several occasions have told people that a sighting that they had was of a Thunderbird. You can go, again, I'm not meaning to push my website, but I have a really cool sighting of a very large bird on my website that a medicine man pronounced a spirit bird. So you can go to the little search box up in the right-hand corner and put in spirit bird, and I think it'll lead you to that. He said that was the witness who saw it was seeing a spirit bird. And the American Monsters one starts out with a really similar sort of bird in the way it looked. It had a 22-foot wingspan. I know because the witness told me its wings touched both sides of the road at the same time. It was running on this road to get enough lift to get itself off into the air. It was that big. And when I went up there, this was the eastern side of the Mississippi River across from Minneapolis in a kind of a quiet little private resort town. I went up there and met the witness, and he showed me where it was, and I measured it myself. It was 22 feet wide, that road. So this creature had that size wings. So there are the pterosaurs that people do see. I don't think they tally up with the Thunderbird description, but they're up there, and I don't know if those are relics that are showing up in temporary time portals. That's what some people say. Some people say there is a hidden population somewhere in the Andes, perhaps, and they now and then do a flyover. I don't know what the explanation for them is, but the great whitish, silverish plumed ones that look sort of like big storks are the ones that seem to be different too than the Thunderbirds. They're the ones that are called the spirit birds. So you've got these large birds and different functions, different forms. It's very interesting.
Anthony on Twitter, we call him Tattoo Man over here. He lives way out on the East Coast in the New England area. He's a tattoo artist by trade, so that's why we gave him the nickname. He is asking, have you received any more recent sentient mist stories?
I haven't really, just like in the past year or so. The incidents that were happening out at Lee's farm were so delineated and intense. They've kind of abated a little bit since he hasn't been able to he had to stop taking the deer carcasses out there because of chronic wasting disease. There were new rules and regulations, and it kind of toned down what was going on. But I haven't had any just recently. I have had some since the book came out, but I don't have the case files out, so or I mention them a little more specifically. So I expect that it happens a lot, and people at the time just don't even think to mention it. I'm sure there are many, many more cases of it than I would ever hear of. I know that.
Let's move. Okay, go on. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I feel like I'm giving an incomplete answer there, but the short word for it would be no, not really, not lately.
Quick one here from Michael. Do dogmen howl?
Another good question. Again, just going by the ones that the reports that I get where people have been able to observe the creature making a noise, not just hear a creature and then later see a dogman and conclude that the two went together, because it's not always that way. What people say is that I've never had anybody say they saw it howl, but I've heard them say that they were watching it, they could see it, and it was making kind of a weird noise, a weird growl that I liken to one of those old coffee makers that would go from a very high to a very low pitch, an espresso maker. And it was kind of like rah, rah, rah. And I've had different people demonstrate it for me, people who are unrelated, different towns, never knew one another, and they'll make that same noise. And it's just very bone-chilling, they say. When it's in the deep part of it, it's very deep, and then it's kind of grating, and then it keeps dropping back down to that deep place. And they usually add that that's one of the scariest facets of their experience encountering these creatures, is that up and down growling that it does. And it makes me wonder if they're utilizing ultrasound, the low sound depths, which some animals do use. I guess tigers do, and some other mammals will use that ultrasound to sort of freeze their prey, not exactly paralyze them, but just sort of stop them so they can, make their final pounce.
All right, let's move on to Gail's question. She's asking if you believe any of these creatures could be related to creatures like the Montauk Monster.
Well, by the Montauk Monster, that is usually reputed to be a hybrid of some sort, since it's near some big facility that does that kind of work there. It was washed up on the beach. And there are lots of these creatures that show up on beaches, and they're usually not as big as the Dogman. They're usually quite a bit smaller. And I think several have been shown to have been raccoons that were in the water too long. They look really weird, but there are a lot of effects that being in the water can do to a carcass. There have been bigger, much, much larger things washed up that they call globsters, that some have been shown to be the carcasses of a certain type of whale that erode in the water in such a way that they kind of turn to jelly. It's hard to even describe. I think there's something else. I don't know that they would necessarily be a hybrid creature, but I do believe that there are hybrid creatures being made in secret labs probably all over right now, because the technology and the information is out. And even though it's outlawed by our government and many other governments, people are just that way. If they can do something and they think there's a good reason for them to, somebody will. Somebody will do it. And I really think that that's happening. And again, I've got another story in my new forthcoming book about a man who observed what he thought were cloned dogs and also cloned humans running around, having their exercise on a public park track here in the U.S. So I don't doubt that hybrid things are happening, but I don't know if you can specifically tie things like, you have to always remind yourself that sometimes animals just drown and then get looking really gnarly when they're found, but that doesn't mean that there aren't these types of experiments going on.
All right, let's move on to more questions here from our audience, as we only got about 10 minutes left here. And Dale is asking, have you studied up on skinwalkers? What do you think they are?
Yeah, this is something that I've had to kind of familiarize myself with, because it comes up in many, many, many times, in many ways. And this is a very basic belief tradition among many of our major Native American cultures, that medicine men can go through a series of rituals and training and some really kind of nasty sounding, rigorous things they have to do to join to become one of these creatures. And supposedly what they become is something that can take on the form of an animal. It could be a wolf, it could be a bear. In Michigan, there are bear walking clans. So it's not always just the wolf. And they're very often, like for instance, they're best known among the Navajo in the West, and in that situation, they are usually considered harmful to the other people of the area, and something that is to be avoided if you can possibly help it. And again, these are in the areas where these creatures are known or said to be prominent. This is where I see those different types of dogmen where they're much taller. They may have the red eye glow. They're more humanoid in their bodies. They have shoulders and, are built in muscular ways. They may even walk flat-footed. So they have a slightly different anatomy than the other type of dogmen. And I do hear about them, and certainly many people do believe in them.
All right. We're continuing with questions here. We're going to get to Andrew's question from the Spreaker chat room, and he is asking, Linda, did you ever hear about a family in the 1980s that was killed in the land between the lakes, and there was a girl found 30-something feet in a tree? Apparently the military got involved and killed something, dragged it out with one of their big trucks. Could this have been a dogman attack, even though it was ruled an animal attack?
Well, there are lots of people who say so. I really have not personally found any sort of indication that it did happen or any sort of verification. Perhaps it's possible to completely wipe the entire memory of a family off the face of the earth. I don't know. Again, I usually try to go by what I receive personally, and when I have reached out to somebody that I thought might know more, I wasn't sure that, it was correct. So I guess it's possible. It would be very unlike any of the reports that I've personally received in the 27 years, hundreds and hundreds. But, you can never say never. There are certainly times when the dogmen are doing things that appear to be very threatening and menacing to people, and I guess it's possible that there are some people who were killed and never found, so I don't know. But I don't have any personal inside knowledge. Again, Bart Nunnally in Kentucky probably has a better handle on this than I do. And I will say that one of the last conferences I did in the past year, I did address this, and I mentioned the fact that I had never found any sort of evidence whatsoever that it actually happened. There were a couple of, again, retired policemen waiting for me when I left the room, and they said, we just wanted to thank you for not blowing it up or making it seem like something that it wasn't, because they said, we never found any evidence either, and we worked in that area, and were around there at that time. So I guess that was another vote of no confidence for the story. But I don't feel I know enough to say that it didn't happen either. So unless I find something more definitive, I just stay on the fence.
All right. Works for me. Works for me totally. Let's go to another audience question here, and this one comes from another Andrew, and I accidentally scrolled up too far. Andrew is asking on Twitter, what do you think of the repeating and very recent Mothman reports coming out of Chicago?
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's not. I don't live very far from Chicago, about 2 hours drive, and we can be down there. And I did investigate something very similar. I called it the Wisconsin Man Bat in La Crosse back in around 2006, I think it was. And so it wasn't something that I was totally unfamiliar with. And a lot of people are reminded of the Mothman, of course. But there have been so many, after there were so many that kind of made you sit back and go, whoa, yeah, this thing seems to be happening. Then there were all of a sudden questionable ones. They were showing up all over the city, over the Gold Coast downtown and near the Art Institute and in some of the Chi-Chi neighborhoods, which is the exact opposite of where most of these sorts of creature sightings take place. The Mothman of West Virginia, Point Pleasant, was found in this old kind of, I can't think of the term for it right now, but it was sort of an abandoned Army area. The one in La Crosse, Wisconsin was sort of in the halfway point between two towns, out on kind of a deserted road with a gun club nearby. So places where these sorts of animals or creatures are usually found in what they call liminal areas. Liminal meaning not here, not there, neither hither nor yon. So that started feeling not quite right to me. I do know of a professor at the School of the Art Institute that actually had some not live action, but action-packed art displays where he had he had mechanical bats placed in an environment with real bats, and some of them were radio controlled. They could flap their wings and move around, and then the point was to see if they interacted with the real bats. So there was something with experimentation with similar things going on at one time in relation to the School of the Art Institute that I can tell you about. And his name was Kak, K-A-K was his last name, and it can be looked up on the internet. So I don't know if that had something to do with it. My friend Allison Jornlin, Jornlin, she's on Facebook, took it upon herself. She's a great investigator, went to find every single one of them and visit them in person. She's a really good person to ask about that, and is starting to do public speaking on them too. But I think my own personal opinion is there was something really happening at first that then perhaps became mimicked by some people who wished to have it go on or something, or had their own purposes. I'm not even sure what they would be. But there's something to the sightings. You can't just say that the whole thing was made up.
We only have about 90 seconds left with you tonight, my friend, and what an honor and a pleasure it has been to have you back on Spaced Out Radio. It's always a good time to have you here and to be with us to break down the cryptids. And I'm just curious if you would mind to take the time to go over your websites, your books, let our audience know where they can find you. Yes.
Again, the easiest catch-all place is lindagodfrey.com. I'm also on Facebook. My Facebook is Linda S. Godfrey Author. And if you go to lindagodfrey.com, you can also find an About page where there are lists of upcoming appearances. I'm kind of done for this part of the year, but that'll be starting up again soon. And lists of books with clickable links, and you'll find other stuff there too. So that would be the go-to place.
Awesome. Linda Godfrey, Queen of the Cryptids, always a pleasure to have you on Spaced Out Radio. I definitely want to have you back on once your new book comes out on print, because I think our audience should check it out. It's called I Know What I Saw, Modern Day Encounters with Monsters of New Urban Legend and Ancient Lore. You can pre-order the book now, and we'll talk to you hopefully this summer, Linda.
It sounds great, and thanks to all of your listeners too. And I will mention one of the first chapters in that book is titled A Dog Lady and a Meat Hook.
Nice. Thank you, Linda. Olaf Phillips with the SOR Newswire coming up next.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio Live with Dave Scott on the Deep Talk Radio Network.
Are you tired of being blocked, shadow banned, or placed in jail for simply posting your thoughts on social media? Social Media Freedom can take care of that for you. Social Media Freedom is the newest and one of the best free new apps that allows you the freedom to post what you want when you want. It takes seconds to download from your app store. Come join the tribe at Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free.
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch? Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape personalized escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
Heading to Vancouver and looking for a night on the town? The Moose Vancouver is the bar that never stops rocking until 2 a.m. every night. The Moose has great food with everything on the menu from $6.95 to $8.95. Fantastic, vibrant staff and rock and roll that will bring you back to when the music was real, the hair was long, and the guitars were rocking. Get your party on at the Moose Vancouver, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thal, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
Coming soon to our website, spacedoutradio.com, is the SOR Space Travelers Club. For just $5 a month, you can get into a private area on our site where you can hang with other listeners in our chat room, post in our forum, and check out a bunch of exclusive content and store that won't be found anywhere else, including a nightly after-show party with Dave. It's going to be the best $5 a month you're going to spend. The SOR Space Travelers, only at spacedoutradio.com.
We're bringing scientific thought to the paranormal. Hi there, this is Spaced Out Radio scientist Chris Cogswell. Join me, Chris Zuger, and Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month, where we break down the who from the woo when it comes to everything paranormal. We'll investigate and try to bring sensible answers to those straight and sometimes outlandish questions people have. Hey, not everything has an answer, but we'll do our best. Listen in to Reality Paranormal only on Spaced Out Radio.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Hi there, this is Geraldine Orozco from San Francisco's Bay Area Meditation. I invite you to join me the first Tuesday of every month with Dave Scott for Spaced Out Radio's The Spiritual You. In this fast-paced world we live in, it's time for you to take some time for you. We'll cover every possible subject from powerful meditation to healing techniques to your own intuition and spirituality. So come join us for The Spiritual You.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Did you know Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi there, this is Tessa Nicole Thomas, and I'm here to take you on a paranormal journey each Saturday and Sunday night. Why change the station when you have it all right here? Together, we'll hang out and share some strange and scary stories. And don't forget, we have Psychic Sundays as well, so come tune in Spaced Out Weekend. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, only at spacedoutradio.com, where we own the night.
You know, it's hard being the bad man of ufology, but that's just the way that I like it. This is Chris George Zuger, and I'll be hanging out with Dave Scott and SOR scientist Chris Cogswell for Reality Paranormal, the second Wednesday of every month. And our job is to break it down and come to conclusions as to what is really going on in the supernatural world. I'd love for you to join us right here on Spaced Out Radio.
We've rounded third. We are heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Thank you so much for joining us. I am your host, Dave Scott, the captain's chair of SOR headquarters, and now we bring in the man, the myth, the paranoia legend, Mr. Olaf Phillips with the SOR Newswire. The news is always changing, which is why we bring you the SOR Newswire, talking about the weird, the wacky, the WTF that goes on around the world, especially in Florida. But tonight, with Olaf Phillips on the SOR Newswire, we have a little bit of strange news. Now, on Friday, Olaf, a gentleman part of MUFON named Philip Leach released a 5-page letter with 12 different accounts, or stanzas, I should say, about what is wrong with the inner workings of MUFON. Before we continue, do you want to give your greetings and salutations before we start?
Greetings and salutations.
Welcome to the show. Thank you. So, anyways, this letter that we received was literally sent to every MUFON member state director around, including the Board of Governors. Or board of directors of MUFON, and it's caused a lot of stirring up, going from doing criminal background checks and medical background checks on people who were eyewitnesses to UFOs, to their media man, Roger Marsh, allegedly holding out for more money because he wasn't getting paid, so he was refusing, allegedly, to do his media job, and questioning the leadership of Jan Harzan, questioning the abilities of investigation by Chase Klotsky. It went on, and it was pretty damning. And now, obviously, this is a one-sided affair. And this is, but I did hear from someone else in MUFON who received the report, and I will keep this person nameless because that's how you hold your sources. And this person told me that everything that they read on that letter was true, and that they feel there's shady practices happening in the higher echelon of MUFON. So, wondering what the fallout was, a gentleman by the name of Ben Moss, who was a state director for Virginia, has apparently stepped down because of this. He said on his Facebook today It's with great sadness and relief that, as of today, I am resigning as chief field investigator for MUFON in the state of Virginia. I feel that MUFON has lost its way due to making the scientific study of UFOs a goal, and that is no longer in sight. Instead, due to the recent insider release, it has become a vehicle to enrich a few at the top, gain media notoriety, and is apparently sinking into a political fight for control and ego. It was fun when it worked, but now I feel it is broken beyond repair without changes at the top. My fellow investigators will suffer the most as there are many good people in the organization. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, as a former MUFON member, I left MUFON because I didn't like the fact that, and this is a long time ago that I left MUFON, I did not like the fact that it's a member, supposed to be a member-run organization, right? And I get that they have to pay the executive director some kind of salary to manage it. Fair enough. Mm-hmm. But everything else is supposed to be donated. I'm donating my time. We have a wonderful director of Northern California, Ruben Uriarte. He's an amazing investigator, a good guy, works really hard, is very passionate, but he volunteers his time. And, everybody volunteers their time. And I'm paying dues. They're going back to MUFON headquarters, and nothing is coming back to the state at all. Nothing is going to help the state chapter function. But the headquarters is making all kinds of demands of the state. For example, in MUFON, they have the MUFON symposium every year. And the symposium moves from state to state, or, in the case of here, we have NorCal and we have SoCal, but it moves around. Well, I think it's disgusting that the state MUFON people have to plan and pay for the symposium to be held in their state, and they don't, and then they get money back if it makes any money. And from what I heard, typically it does not make any money at all. That it actually loses money. And I had a problem with some of the decisions that they made around the Bigelow thing.
Yeah,
I think,
did.
Yeah. And I think that when you take the MUFON symposium, which was for many, many decades, a very interesting operation where you'd have guys like Ted Phillips talking about real trace cases, going out there with Geiger counters, and doing soil analysis. They had PhD guys donating their time to run chemical analysis on the landing sites and all this other stuff. When you start bringing in guys like David Wilcock and Corey Good, as speakers to this thing, it's a mess. Corey Good, I've been on the record many times stating that I think that he's full of it, and he's one of the few people that I'll go after on a named basis. Normally I'm the kind of guy where I'm like, I don't agree with you, but that's my own thoughts. I try not to put anybody in ufology down. If anything, I try to empower people to do their own research, and a few of them have gone on to great things. But, it just more and more, it just became about the leadership, and about the leadership getting money, and about the leadership getting press, and about the leadership. Well, the leadership is riding on the backs of all those poor MUFON members who are paying the salary of the executive director at a minimum, and they had to pay. And in the case of the guy before Jan Arzan, they actually had to pay the guy rent for the area of his garage or wherever he was running it out of. I mean, it's ludicrous, and it stopped being a member-focused, member-controlled organization. And I mean, the whole thing that went down with Bigelow is proof of that. Now,
but don't forget too, as we continue, and I know we're eating a lot into the news section here, but don't forget,
more important.
Don't forget too that they just subsequently did the exact same thing with the To the Stars Academy, working a partnership agreement with them, even though there may not be a contract on paper like there was with Bigelow. But, you know, when you go on Coast to Coast AM, or being Jan Harzan, the president, and Luis Elizondo at the same time, and you guys are talking like old hat, like you've been working this for months, if not years.
Right.
That's against everything MUFON stood for.
Yeah, MUFON is about the scientific investigation of UFOs. It's not about throwing your hat into the guy of the hour, which in this case is the To the Stars Academy. You know, they it's become a PR machine, and I think it's lost sight of what it was really about. And I think it's time for it to end. That it, you know, or be rebuilt, maybe is better. But you know, I mean, I tried once to because you know I'm an IT guy. I tried to volunteer to you know streamline some of their stuff around databases, and the requirements that I got back were so absurd that it's like I was like I'm not doing this. And it's like, look, it's a member-run organization. It's a member-financed organization. It's a member-donated time organization. You know, don't come at me with a statement of work that, you know, that basically prices me out of the market giving my time for free. Say, okay, well, these are the things I want to do. What can you help with? It was more like, do all this or nothing. And it was like, fine, nothing then. I just, you know, the thing that really bothers me is that they, at a whim, they keep selling the sightings database. And there's personal information in there. Now, I get if you have a big case, right, and you want to have one of the MUFON members who's a doctor do a medical evaluation or even a psychiatric evaluation as part of it, that's evidence. That's something where you can go, nope, they're not crazy. They're stone cold sober. Yep, they passed the physical. You know, it adds to the case and makes the case more powerful. If you're just running background checks on everybody because they're $29.99, you know, that's messed up. You know,
mm-hmm. It totally is.
And
if it's a medical problem, I was talking to Michael W. Hall about this, our paranormal lawyer, and he was stating that if they are giving out or going after medical records, that could violate HIPAA laws.
Absolutely. If you don't authorize it, absolutely. And it's just, you know, as time goes on, it's just getting shadier and shadier. And Jan Harzan, I mean, he did some great research. You know, but it's like, you know, you've got people, they had the whole racist problem where the guy was making racist comments. I mean, it's just, I don't know. It seems like it's got some sort of a disease, you know, and you need to cut the disease out. And I don't know what the right answer is for those guys, but I'll tell you, it hurts ufology in general because all the news is bad news.
Well, do you see more members quitting over this? I mean, we've only seen one that I've seen gone public so far. I mean, you know, when the Ventry thing happened, we didn't see an exodus of a mass amount of people. Chris Cogswell was probably the biggest name in there. But for other people...
I think you will. You know, it's like anything else. I think a lot of the exodus is silent. I mean, there have been many times when MUFON was on the razor's edge of being operable because they had a higher attrition rate and they were having problems, you know, making payments on stuff. So I think that the people are leaving. They're just not making a big deal out of it. And I think that MUFON as it was amazing. I think that we need organizations like that. I just, you know, somebody inside of MUFON's just got to do something about it. You know, I mean, we need organizations like that. I hope the MUFON figures it out because they used to be an amazing organization. But they're going to be just like APRO and all the others that end up dying away. And what does that do for ufology? You know?
Well, it leaves it back. It leaves it back in the hands of independents and big organizations like the To the Stars Academy.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, and this is a stone cold, sober fact, right? For every one of your listeners, and this goes for paranormal investigators, and this goes for UFO investigators and conspiracy investigators and everybody else. If there's somebody you're really tracking, somebody you really like, and something seems off, look for the profit imperative. 9 times out of 10, when you get a researcher who may have been a good researcher once upon a time, but maybe they got a little fame, they got on a TV show or whatever, and then their research seems to be a little wonky, look for the profit imperative. Because 9 times out of 10, if the researcher is being driven by a profit imperative, meaning that they make all their money off of it, then the research suffers, because the researcher has to outdo themselves. They have to double down. It's like, okay, I wrote a book, and I wrote a book about this thing, and okay, I wrote the book, and a bunch of people bought it. Now I got to write another book. How do I make a book that was better than the first one? This is the problem that Orson Welles had, right? Orson Welles made Citizen Kane right out of the gate, and never again was he able to achieve the success that he achieved with Citizen Kane. For the rest of his career, he tried and tried and tried and became fed up and disillusioned because he couldn't get the same kind of traction that he got with his first movie. And it's a problem. Now, I'll tell you, I'll go on the record. I don't do this with a profit imperative. If you ever listen to me be interviewed, I'll tell you my shtick. You don't believe me? That's okay. You want to buy the book, buy the book. You don't want to buy the book, don't buy the book. It doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is the research. What matters to me is the story. You know, what matters to me is the truth. And I think that there are guys like Nick Redfern. I love Nick Redfern. You know, he's getting out there and he's trying to shine light on these weird things. David Weatherly. I love that guy. He's trying to shine light on weird things. You're trying to shine light on weird things. You know, it's okay to pay your bills with it, but you gotta look for the profit imperative, you know. There's nothing wrong with paying your bills by writing books at all. That's not what I'm saying. But there's a point when you look at things like the Bigelow deal or To the Stars Academy where you've got to look at it and go, why are you really in this? Are you in this for the research, or are you in this to make money? Right?
And that's really what it comes down to, my friend. That's really what it comes down to in regards to it. And as I stated with Chase Klotsky on the air, I stated with Tom Whitmore 2 weeks ago on the air, and other people regarding MUFON, and I will talk to Grant Cameron about this tomorrow night as well. That upper echelon, that board, has to clean house. And in the end, whether it's the board or Jan Harzan, somebody has to go. And Jan being at the top, that definitely means that, you know, he may be the one who has to, you know, step aside and say, hey, I tried my best. I couldn't clean it up because of the infighting or the side deals that nobody's talking about. And it's dangerous. Like I asked Tom Whitmore, I mean, he's the director of accounting and financing for MUFON. He ran a financial company as a CEO, a $225 million company. I said, if Jan was cutting side deals with places like To the Stars, shouldn't the board know about that? Shouldn't the board have some sort of understanding about that? And he didn't have an answer. He did not have a quality answer for that.
Because he knew they should. See, that's the danger is, you know, you can tell there's a problem when they're cutting side deals. You know, it's like, do you need the money that bad? Maybe you should cut overhead.
We only got a couple minutes here, Ola, before we got to say goodnight. We're going to skip the thought of the day of today. But I don't mind that they are doing that, Okay, what I do mind is, are we getting into another Bigelow scenario where private files, which has been denied and confirmed on this show by MUFON members, are we getting into another idea where To the Stars is all of a sudden getting access to MUFON files, especially the private ones that are really juicy cases?
Right. You have to ask yourself that. Look, if you run a member-owned, member-operated operation, you have to be transparent. You have to be, because at the end of the day, whatever money you're going to get, I forget the guy who was before Jan Harzan, the one who cut the deal with Bigelow. The defense of running the deal with Bigelow was, well, we got all this sudden influx of money, and we can, we had this, I forget the name of it, but they made that team of people who could go out and check stuff out. You know what? I would rather that you hadn't done that deal with Bigelow and you reached out and gave resources to the state chapters, because I guarantee you that within a lot of these chapters in the states, there's a lot of knowledge. And you didn't need the STAR team or whatever. You've got those guys already. Find a couple guys in the state that are willing to take the phone call at 1 a.m. going, there's something going on. There are people that would do that. I've known many people in NorCal that were totally willing to do that. But instead they took the money. They didn't even fulfill their end of the bargain, so they lost a huge chunk of the money. They took the money, they took the bad press, they made the STAR program, and now where are they? They're doing it again.
And on that note, Olaf, we got to say goodnight to you, my friend. ParanoiaMagazine.com. It's a great read. Can I say that? It's a great read.
It's down at the moment, but it'll be back up tomorrow, and then it'll be super rad.
Sweet. Thanks to Captain Shirk for the SOR Newswire at spacedoutradio.com. Just click on the news tab. Big thanks to Linda Godfrey for coming on in, talking all sorts of monsters and Dogman. Tomorrow night, Grant Cameron, we're talking UFOs. We'll get more into the MUFON subject as well. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking it in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody in the chat rooms and on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio for hanging out with us. Thanks for helping us spread the word, getting bigger and better every single night, because together, my friends, we own the night. I will talk to you in 21 hours from now. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Good night.